Check, check. Check one, check two.
So nice to meet you too, over the video link. And Rob, nice to meet you. I watched your the cast that you did together a couple days ago. I really enjoyed it. Rob, I watched your
cool.
podcast with Chris Sinatra. Really enjoyed it.
Chris is awesome.
Yeah, I've been watching yours. That's actually how
cool.
I found We Are One podcast, is through Chris Sinatra.
Oh, sweet. Awesome. Yes. So did you watch you did watch the interview today, right? That I posted from Cynthia? Sue?
Yes. So good.
Yeah,
so good.
She's awesome. She's really nice to talk to. Really positive.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Really enjoy her energy and what she brings to the conversation.
Somebody better bring something, because I can't bring it. I can't bring it all.
It's not true. It's not true. I've been enjoying your podcast from the time I saw the first one. I found Chad through Chris Sinatra and been watching their podcast together. And then when I saw your podcast, I've really been enjoying it. So thank you for putting good content out there. Just wanted you to know that I don't like commenting on videos. I like being part of the silent majority, but I had enough things happening when I was watching the video about the remote that I couldn't not message you about that. And
well, I appreciate that. That's awesome.
Going out of my comfort zone to talk about what I was experiencing. There's some times where you just can't deny that something is happening and you're supposed to do something about it. So.
Well, thank you for that. Do you want to go ahead and run through some of the thoughts that you were having when you were watching it, or some of the things that happened?
Oh, absolutely. So watching your video and you talking about this remote showing up brought to mind a couple things that have happened to me. Just a little bit of background on me. I was born aware of certain things, the world of the unseen, miracles, that kind of thing has always been very real to me. Energy, synchronicities, but in the last 4 years, I would say it's just accelerated to a whole new level. And when I heard you talk about this remote showing up, my ears perked up, because I've had some similar experiences. And while your video was playing, I started hearing a little chirp somewhere in the area where I was. And about every 3 minutes or so, a little chirp would happen, and I could not locate the source of it. I had a new power strip that I was using to charge my phone. I checked that. I unplugged it. It wasn't that. I checked, the ice maker on our fridge. Did I leave the fridge door open? Where is this coming from? And it just kept continuing all through your video. And so I was kind of searching for it, actually, while I was listening to you talk about this remote. And then the video was done. I still hadn't found the location of what was chirping. I opened the windows, looked outside to see if maybe some of the construction outside, somebody, had set an alarm or something that was going off, and couldn't figure it out. So, but I also couldn't get the remote out of my mind. And I thought, I'm going to see if I can find who made that. And so one of my talents is actually finding and sleuthing and tracing down. When things like this grab my attention, I know it's for a reason. So I looked real close at the picture. You just had it up a second ago, the picture that you had posted in the thumbnail, and did a Google search for remotes that go to fans, and saw one that looked almost exactly like it, except it had a logo on it that yours doesn't have, which also was a fun clue and a fun message for me. But as I started looking closer at the remote, there were a couple things that were interesting about it that started ringing some bells. Oh, and one part that I forgot to tell you about was when you're talking with MJ about the remote, and you're checking the batteries, and he's saying, I don't know, maybe sending you an SOS from another dimension. The beep I was hearing went off 3 times fast. Beep, beep, beep. Right when he said the SOS. And about a year ago, in the middle of the night, my fire alarm did a series of 3 beeps, just like that. Beep, beep, beep. And then nothing for about 20 minutes, and then beep, beep, beep. Did it again. Long story short, it turned out to be a synchronicity and a message for me. And the 3 beeps represented SOS. It was an SOS meaning. And so when I heard the 3 beeps go off in sequence, when MJ said that, yeah, I got goosebumps. I was like, this is connected. Whatever this beep is, it's connected. I don't know what it is yet. And so those were a couple of the synchronicities that jumped out at me right away. But then when I found the picture of the remote, even more synchronicities started jumping out at me. And just to give you a little bit of background on me, over the past 4 years, one of the abilities that has really just skyrocketed is being able to read the environment around me in real time, almost like it's a car dashboard or a dashboard to a complex computer. Yeah, I'm getting real-time feedback and have gotten very good at interpreting what I am seeing around me. Almost everything is a metaphor for what's going on somewhere energetically in another dimension, or energetically just in the world of the unseen, because energy is flying around us all the time. So when I started seeing different things with this remote, I was like, oh, this is definitely a metaphor, and this is something that I think I should probably share with Ken, but I didn't want you to think I was weird. So
no, honestly, the whole reason I've made this channel is to 2 reasons: to talk to people and get another perspective, but also to validate and verify the things that I'm thinking and the things that I'm intuitively feeling. Because my wife is a Reiki master, and she's been awake a little longer than I have, but she's plugged back into the matrix, and she has a 9 to 5. Well, she has like a 6 to 6, but that's beside the point. But when we moved to Savannah, I don't have anything currently that I'm working on, although now it's materializing where I'm going to be working with some kids, teaching them soccer and just, trying to develop the youth any way that I can. So, she was waiting for me a little bit, and now I'm kind of going off on a tangent and trying to find some things and find some answers for myself. But that's the whole reason that I started the channel was to connect. It certainly wasn't to hear myself.
Well, I appreciate that you did it so much, because I think conversations like this are so important when people can share their experiences and validate for each other. Absolutely. That something is happening here. For years ago, when this really started to accelerate, I had a similar experience with a woman who lives in the UK. I was listening to one of her videos, and she put a picture of kind of a wooden sculpture in London. He's sitting on a bench, and he's like this. And I looked up in my windowsill, and I have a sculpture that's almost exactly like it. While she was showing it, I was standing in front of my sculpture, and about 4 or 5 things like that happened. And so I did the same thing. I thought, I don't want her to think I'm weird, but I just kept getting goosebumps and chills, and you need to contact her and just tell her something's happening here. And long story short.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, I think something is definitely going on. Like what I picked up so far when you said things started happening 4 years ago, I'm getting this all the time, whether people are having paranormal experiences, whether their psychic abilities are increasing, whether they feel like they're in contact with beings from another world, or they think they can remote view, or they can remote view, or they can bend spoons with their mind, or they're having matrix type experiences. Like it's all starting to increase. And I don't know what that is. If that we would call that, like, I don't really buy into the new age stuff, like that we're going to the fifth dimension or anything like that. But I do see an expansion of consciousness. Yeah. You know what I mean? Does that? Yeah. I mean.
And 4 years is about,
so maybe
4 years is about a timeline that I can say a lot of stuff has happened in the last 4 years, specifically the last 4 years, I think.
That's so cool. That's so cool that it all coordinates, and there's no coincidences. So this woman and I started, her name's Rosie. I can't even call her a sister because she's just so much more than that to me at this point. But we started sharing messages back and forth. And after several thousand coincidences that you can't explain, I'm just so grateful that I was blessed with her friendship in my life, because she and I have been able to confirm for each other that we're not crazy, that something is going on here. We decided after about 3 months of kind of talking back and forth and having enough really cool, weird stuff happen, that we wanted to understand better what the how to quantum jump, how to time travel, how to transport objects possibly from one timeline to another. A lot of talking about the Mandela Effect and what that possibly could be. And what we've noticed is that when she and I talk about certain subjects, it amplifies it, and we've learned so much together. And I felt the same way when I started seeing the synchronicities with your remote. The same goosebumps. It's like, you need to email him, you need to get in contact, because this is important what's happening here. And what Rosie and I have concluded is that when she and I share these conversations, it actually grounds the reality of what we're talking about even more into the programming of the hologram. It bolsters it.
Nice.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it not only validates the collective consciousness for sure, but it also makes you see them and be more aware of them, through connections of other people as well. So like, somebody might see this and be like, oh, I want to experience this. And all of a sudden they'll start seeing them, and then they'll have their synchronicities, and then it's kind of a telephone kind of thing where you touch somebody else, and then they'll see it, and then they'll see it. And, the experiences kind of go that way.
I couldn't agree more. I really like the way that Chris Sinatra has described it as, the universe is based on commerce. And when we have energetic interactions with each other, we're trading. It's almost like downloading files or trading files with each other. Yeah. And so conversations like this are so important, because it just grounds it and makes it safe for even more people to raise their hand and say, you know what, I've had objects show up out of nowhere in my house too.
Yeah, and you have to not only ask for it, you have to allow it to happen, I think, and not only believing it and then seeing it, but you have to want it to happen and allow it to happen, so that you can welcome that in, because I do think it's a consenting thing. And I was talking to someone that Rob introduced me to today as well, and I think it was almost the exact opposite of that. And I don't want to sound bad for it, but it was I don't consent to what is going on with that, and I'm not going to see it. I'm not going to believe it. I hope that he's understanding of that, how I feel, and not like I'm shutting my eyes to what it could be, but I'm not allowing to live in that reality, in that world that those things will manifest that much worse, not just for him, but for me and for everybody else. So this is the same thing, but it's on another spectrum of the positivity, and that I'm like, yeah, come on, bring it on.
I appreciate so much that you just said all of that. This takes me back to the remote and the messages about the remote, and you, and the messages that I was getting in the metaphor of the remote. What I've come to realize, and I've had similar experiences to you, where I'm presented with a viewpoint or a possible future ahead of us that I'm like, no, that is a valid possibility among quantum possibilities.
Absolutely.
It's valid.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen to be my preference. And so everything changed when I stopped pushing against those viewpoints and just saying, valid viewpoint, not my preference, and wishing it well. And it takes all of the conflict out of it.
Yep.
And that's one of the messages that I got with the remote. One of the things that I've been experiencing as these abilities have been accelerating is being able to see multiple quantum possibilities at the same time, which feels really uncomfortable. But being able to dial into which one of these am I choosing to experience, or allowing myself to see something through someone else's viewpoint, because multiple viewpoints can be true and real, even just looking at the same object.
Absolutely. Yep. It's very objective.
Mm-hmm. And the dark light switch on that remote that showed up, for me, what I read when I see that is your ability to discern, is this a timeline? It's not good and evil. It's more, is this an agenda that is something that's leading to the greatest good or a higher good?
Mm-hmm.
Or yeah, or a timeline that's more about energies being collected and used almost like battery power for somebody else? Is this a timeline that is headed towards more of a path of enlightenment, or a timeline that might have a darker agenda? And being able to amplify that light for those that are meant to see it, but also be aware of the light, the timelines that maybe it's not a path that you would want to guide others down. So I just love that you just said that, because it goes right along with the messages that I was getting. It's a form of remote viewing, but it's almost like seeing multiple timelines at once. Yeah.
It's a quantum view. And I think one of the things that I think about often is, when I pass away, or when I cease to live in this existence, this realm, I'm not sure I'll ever pass away, but when I leave this realm, one of the things that I keep thinking that's going to happen is I'm going to wake up and they're going to say, whatever you were thinking was all you. Like, you could have done anything. You could literally have done whatever aspect you wanted. And, I'm thinking about, if that's the case, if we can literally choose whatever path we want, and we know we can choose it, why would I choose something that I don't want to make into reality? So, I
got something. You gotta get you guys' opinion on this. What do you think about like people like Jason, Jason from Archaics, who thinks that like we have like AIX, right? There's like this thing that's like that knows what we're thinking, and it can kind of manipulate your timeline. It can put things into your reality that you don't want, and kind of throw you curveballs in your life that make you stumble. Do you think that we can overcome that, or do you think that's even a thing?
Are you aware of the Archaics channel with Jason?
I'm not, but I am aware of the concept that Rob is talking about. And I'll tell you, with AI, I believe it's the same type of situation. Yes, it can go that way, but there's also quantum versions of realities where AI is amplified for the greatest good, or for a great good. It depends on what you're expecting the future to look like. And the cool thing is that we get to choose, or we can temporarily step into the other viewpoint and learn what we need to learn, but you don't have to stay there.
That's right.
I think that's a superpower, to be able to just try it on for size and go, okay, what is this teaching me? It's not my preference, so I'm going to step back out of it. But the ability to experience it comfortably, I think there's a lot of power in that.
And we do have.
So wait,
Rob, to answer your question, we do have information fields. They're called auras. I mean, it's a proven information field. And I do believe what Jason says. And Jason says the same thing that I believe. I heard him say it probably about a year ago. And I turned to my wife and I was like, wow, I didn't expect him to say that. And he said the same thing that we've been talking about, is that, you know, these situations come into your perception and your reality, and your information field controls all of that. And if you don't want to live in that information field, you just say no, and it goes away. It will not bother you. And
so wait, I got a question then with that said. Yeah. Do you think bad things happen in our life, or like bad situations come up are because of like maybe indoctrination or programming or predictive programming, where, you know, like it's something kind of ingrained in our brain that's making us project a bad reality? Does that make any sense or no?
Sure. I'd like to know your thoughts, Ken, and then I have a couple thoughts about that.
Yeah, so I do think that it is some kind of a programming mechanism. I'm not sure what it's for. Again, I'm not willing to dive down every rabbit hole that says everything is good and evil, and that, you know, that is the cabal, the lords of the minions, whatever you might say it is. I think that it's just a perspective. You know, it's that they're trying to shape something, and, you know, it's possible that it's completely hijacked. I don't know if it's an AI. I don't know if it's a future consciousness that is trying to interject itself. And I don't know that it's even necessarily for bad situations or bad things. I think it's all perspective. I can say that from our perspective, or the majority's perspective, is it's not a good thing in some of those instances. But, you know, I think that it's there, but it's indoctrination, and we have to change that. We have to take our power. We have to take our sovereignty back, you know, as human beings and as creators. And I think the bandwidth on some of these people that are just being manipulated is so small that they don't even know they have any power left. And that's exactly what these people who are in charge want. And, you know, again, I'm not going to call them bad people or necessarily, you know, they're looking out for their interests. And that's a very capitalistic thing to do. But, you know, we all have special innate abilities. And if we can learn to open that bandwidth and create, then that's going to really hinder what they want to do, but it will help what we want to do.
I love so many things about what you just said. I have a lot of similar thoughts. I do think the more we become aware of what's going on, the less the default programming that's there affects us. Absolutely, there are very strong programs and energy bands that are affecting large groups of people as they become more and more aware that thoughts become things, that their intention can direct their experience. The Mandela Effect, I believe, is a big part of people going, wait, that didn't used to be like reality.
That. It's challenging people who are ready to believe that.
And questioning it. And the more aware, the more bandwidth that person has to work with, and the more in control of their reality they become. So yes, it's a very real thing. And I think that's another reason why these conversations are so important, because it helps bring the wavelength up higher and ground in these higher possibilities, where more and more people are reclaiming their sovereignty, because at one point their sovereignty was given away. They gave it away, probably, you know, a lot of trauma across. I happen to believe that we've lived many, many lifetimes, some of them with a lot of trauma involved. And after a person, a being, whatever you want to call, a consciousness has experienced that much trauma, they're much easier to control. And so a lot of the control happens by the message of re-stimulating or triggering that trauma over and over and over again. So,
well, I get a question, Chaunine. Who do you think is interjecting that trauma? Do you think that's like some like supernatural force, like what we would call like the archons, or what the Gnostics called the archons? Or do you think there's some kind of like manipulators of reality somewhere that are affecting timelines, affecting human consciousness, Does that make any sense or no?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't believe that. I don't know. I'm kind of it's like up in the air for me. Like I'm like, I was going to tell you too. I've also had past life regressions, and every time I was 50, I was skeptical about the past life regressions too, but I had 5 done. And every time in a past life regression, I died some horrible traumatic death. It was never like I was just died in my sleep. I was like getting shot or stabbed in the chest
And did you see
and then you
echoes
can
of
feel it.
that in your reality that you're experiencing now? Were there echoes of that?
Yeah, like what was weird was when I was doing the regression, like if I would get shot in the chest in the regression, my chest in this life during the regression would tighten up. And then I do also have a weird deep fear of falling, like our heights. So I'm really scared of heights. Even though I'll go and I'll ride all the roller coasters. I've always been like an adrenaline person, but like besides that, what I'm trying to say is like I've always had a fear of heights, but then like in my dreams I'm falling too. So it makes me think that I died past lives where I was falling, and now in this life I'm kind of reliving that. I don't know, or I have some fear of that. What do you think?
Yeah. I have had similar experiences, and when I went back and revisited that experience, there also were decisions that I made at that time that carried over into the future where I didn't ever want to experience that again. But sometimes the decisions I made in that experience don't apply anymore and is causing problems in what I'm trying to do now. I kind of think of it as a natural selection where one bird or deer experiences a way that they die, the DNA passes it on, and then it's more survival because the animals that come later kind of have that little bit of program that don't do this, that you're going to die. And it's an instinct. I think that we have a collective instinct that's carried forward, but also individual instincts that have carried forward. So as far as I do think that there are some energies out there that have decided to steal the sovereignty and steal the energy. You kind of see it in different versions of just society, how somebody up at the top is benefiting from the work from a lot of people down below. I do think that those patterns happen. I think their power is in being hidden, and the more and more that you see them and the agenda is uncovered so that we understand what's going on, we reclaim our power and are not effective at it. Ken and I kind of had a little bit of a discussion about this, about psychic attacks and why sometimes they take and sometimes they don't. It just depends on if you give them the authority to do that, or if you decide, you know what, this doesn't have to affect me. There's a lot of power in that. They're just kind of counting on the fact that you're going to back down because of all the trauma you've experienced before.
And I think you really do feel differently when your mentality changes, Rob. When you say you've had enough, when you've ended the suffering and you're like, that's it, I'm done. And you take that day by day and you just keep building on it, you just feel so much more empowered and so much more in charge of your life and control of your life that it just snowballs. And you can see it on certain people. But the levels of programming and the levels of control are probably there. But I think it's more along the lines of those people realize what's really going on with some of the ancient mysteries, some of the mystery schools, and that knowledge that's been passed down about what we're actually doing here, what we're living in, and they're able to control the masses by what they know and how to do it by what their knowledge base is. More along the lines of they're in it and they're controlling it, but there probably is some kind of external simulation governance that is either filtering down knowledge to them, or they're able to channel it, or they're able to get it somehow to help them, in this life, in this manifesting of what they're doing.
I got two topics I'd love to hear you guys' opinion. It's right in line with this stuff: energy vampires and then targeted individuals. Because she mentioned psychic attacks, like, so that made me think of, I know people who get psychic attacks, and there's targeted individuals who go literally through hell. I don't know what those people are experiencing, if that's like schizophrenia or if they're really targeted. And then I'd also like to hear you guys' opinion on energy vampires too, like if you think that's a real thing, because I think it is, to a certain extent. But I guess I hear what you guys are saying. You're saying if you only let that in your field, it's going to affect you. But sometimes that's hard. You know what I mean?
It's a skill.
It is hard.
A skill.
Yeah.
You have to learn.
It is hard. Yeah, for sure. And I'll say one thing real quick, and then Chaunine, you can answer if you don't mind. Is that you can use the metaphor of like the predator and the prey that you see all the time, right? You see the people walking around and they're kind of cowering over and they're very shy, and who usually picks on them? It's the predator. The predator picks on them, and it's the same thing. I think that happens on either a subconscious level or just an observational level of people. You see people who are willing to give you their power, I don't want to keep saying sovereignty, but when they want to keep allowing someone to take from them, people are going to take it. It's just the world that we live in. So, I think that the first question that you asked is some kind of that is, right. It's they're willing to give it up, and some people are willing to take it. And that's how I see the first part of your question.
Yeah, I agree. Energy vampirism is a real phenomenon, but there's also a skill and an ability that we are able to learn, which is to not give them permission to take it. It's an old metaphor, but a vampire can only come in if you invite them into your home. And I had a really funny experience, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, where I actually had 2 missionaries knock on my front door, and I didn't really have time to talk to them, but I didn't want to be rude. So I went to open the door, and the door handle literally came off in my hand. It broke in my hand. So I went to a window that we have right next to the front door, and I opened it. It almost felt like they were at a drive-through. And I just said, "Hey, thanks for ringing the doorbell. My doorknob just broke." And I chatted with them a little bit. And after they left, I had the thought, it was like, wow, like I really didn't want to take the time to let them in. That the doorknob is literally in my hand. And the word missionaries. And then I heard, well, you didn't give them permission to come in. Permissionaries. And I saw these energy attacks or these energy vampires in a very similar way. You don't have to be nasty with them, but you don't have to give them permission to come inside. You say, "Hi, I see you have a message." It doesn't happen to be the one, back to what we were talking about before. It's a valid viewpoint. It doesn't happen to be my preference. It's not something I really want to take up right now. And you just don't give them permission to come in your house. But it doesn't have to be this big, epic thing.
Yeah, and if you don't give them, if you don't acknowledge it, Rob, I mean, it's like the law of the universe that says I consent, I don't consent, whatever that is. We talked about that before. If you have the mentality of you're not going to consent to that, then I mean, even if they take it, if you don't acknowledge it, then they still didn't take it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's interesting.
And just to clarify a little bit, I'm in no way, shape, or form saying that missionaries are energy vampires. It was just more of the metaphor of what happened that it really made it clear. It was like, wow, I see that. Someone can offer an experience to you, but you don't have to invite that into your reality bubble. You can say,
well, sometimes I'm sorry. I was going to say sometimes those people can be really imposing. I mean, I'm not just saying them, but like sometimes you ever notice you'll like run into that person on the street and they'll start preaching to you about life or something, and you'll be like, what is this dude doing? Like, like I don't even know this person.
He's waiting for an opening.
They're just talking to you, like spilling their guts about like this and that, and all these life should be this way. And then you start to notice, like, my energy's going away and I'm starting to get annoyed and I don't want to be rude to this person. Did you guys ever have that happen? It's crazy, right? It's like bizarre. Maybe it's because I'm in the city of Pittsburgh and people are a little bit off here, but like, I'm joking, but I mean, I think you guys know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Or maybe you don't.
Ken, I heard you say something earlier today about non-player characters, and I think sometimes those particular, I think I heard you use the word minions also.
Yeah, I'm going to try to trademark that.
It's almost like they're just a program.
They're running our program. They have a very low level of consciousness and critical thinking and dissemination, and God bless them. That's the way I look at it now. I mean, I do have empathy for them, because I don't know if somebody's in there or not in there. I don't know. What I do know is that that's not something that I'm gonna interact with, Rob. I mean, if they're trying to engage and you don't engage, I mean, I just tell them, whatever they want to hear as far as, God bless them, or, have a great day, hope you find what you're looking for, and just keep moving, because they're looking for interaction and engagement. And the only way that they can get energy from you in this situation is when you give it to them. And you said, a second ago that you feel like you're getting zapped. I would tell you to try to reframe that and say, listen, I'm going to keep repeating the same karmic episodes until I say, have a great day. And I walk away and smile and go, man, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you showing me what my opportunities are. And, it's just reframing that little bit. When somebody cuts you off in traffic, how quick can you get? How quick can you get is what I try to play a game. I'm like, man, nope, not going to do it. Thank you. God bless you. And I'm like, man, I can get better. I can get 3 seconds better, and it's a game for me now. And I'm just like, it happens. You're going to be in a rush. You're going to get stuck and you're going to go, man, darn it. God bless you. Oh man, I hope I got it. You're not taking that from me. It's mine. So have a great day. Thank you. Thank you. I always say thank you.
I love it. Are the two of you familiar with Sean Bond? He does he works with Chris Sinatra quite a bit. I had a nice session with Sean last July, and he taught me something that I found extremely useful, which was loving detachment when these types of energies approach you. A lot of times, like moths, they're drawn to the light, so they see something bright and shiny, and they'll come in to see if there's something they can take off of that. And loving detachment has helped me so much along the lines of what you were just saying, Ken. Thank you for what you're here to show me. And he taught me if they get too aggressive energetically, I don't think you should do this physically, but energetically, you give them a big hug and I love you to death, and you just disperse that energy. I love you to death. And the metaphor that I've started using that's really worked for me is imagining everything about that being that is ready to go back to the light gets almost like a firework in that hug. I love you to death. And whatever's not ready to serve a higher purpose, I send it back into the universe where the lessons it is there to teach will be needed, and where it needs to be, where there's karmic lessons that still need to be learned or whatever. But I just imagine that the energy dispersing in proper ways with that I love you to death hug. And that's really changed things for me. I was getting terrible psychic attacks, and it's changed everything to take that new, like Ken said, reframe it.
And block it, I mean, I used to wake up every single day. This is when I thought I was an enlightened being, I was taking all these things and being like, oh, I'm going to wrap that back up and I'm going to take it back out. And everything that I saw that was negative, Rob, I would be like, oh, that's a message for me. Like, it's telling me, it's from myself to me, telling me, when somebody cuts me off, that's a message for me. Like, just relax, slow down. And I was getting so good at that. And then all of a sudden, you fall back in and you're like, oh, life happened again. And then you just try to reframe it again. But, all these things, you can really wake up every day and go, I'm ready. I'm ready for this. I'm ready for this challenge of trying to take these things that are going on. And I'm going to, as soon as somebody does it, I'm going to be ready for them. And then I'm going to tell them, thank you so much and have a great day. And they're going to be like, what? So I try to reframe it, Rob, just like that, as quickly as I possibly can. Like, that's a message that I'm supposed to see that, right? It's like a negative trait of myself that I'm seeing. And I'm like, oh, stop. That's for me. Thank you. I appreciate it. Go away. I recognize that. Does that make sense
I like
at
that.
all?
I like that. I like the way you guys look at life. You guys have great ways of looking at life. And you. Sorry, go ahead.
No.
I didn't say anything. I think
No, I didn't
you heard.
either.
I don't know.
Somebody, so I was an AI trying to cut you off. It wasn't me. Normally it is me, but
I cut out.
You got dial up, Rob?
No, I was just gonna say, I like the way you guys think, and I think, like, Ken, you've been rubbing off on me. Like, what's that?
There you go again. Nobody said nothing. Keep going. Nobody's gonna cut you off.
Oh no, I was just like, I was in like that major state of depression, and you kind of really helped me get through it, like, and made me like kind of reframe my thinking, because I was thinking like all that was bad, you know what I mean? And I talked to my therapist about this today. I was like, how do I get rid of this like bitterness and anger? Because I was like, this shit happened with this girl, and it's like driving me nuts. And like, she was like, you gotta just like, she's like, you gotta let that go. Like, you're gonna like, because I started noticing that it was affecting like my business. It was affecting the way I treated people. I mean, even if you don't see it on my show, like it was affecting like people I was having conversations with, and like, it was starting to get bad. I was starting to like become like a mean person. And I was like, I can't do this. I was like, I don't want to be like this. So I'm not going to let someone else win. Like, someone that hurt me, I'm not going to let win. I'd rather try to reframe my thinking from whatever. And the signs were everywhere. It was coming from you. It was coming from my therapist. It was coming from my friends. You know what I mean? So it was, I think it was a sign that I needed to change. What do you think about that?
It was, but that sign had to be. That's when you said thank you. I was like, I didn't do anything. You have to acknowledge your signs. I mean, there's nothing I can tell somebody that's not ready to listen. It doesn't matter what I tell them. You're going to hear it in your own time. And if your higher self is trying to connect to you and go, hey, listen, hey, pay attention. It's not that I'm saying something. It's that you're paying attention and you're becoming aware of something that you realize, right? It's your problem to fix, or your aspiration to fix that.
I would agree. If it's ringing a bell for you, it's because you're ready to hear it. So you're creating or calling in answers for something that you're asking for. It's really a cool thing.
Yep, you're manifesting that. You created the solution to the problem. The problem was that you were now single, right? So what's the solution? The solution is to say thank you to her and let that go, and that you're gonna, go upon your way, but you're not gonna do it in a position of negativity, right? So that's you creating that solution, and that's what you have to worry about going forward. Is when those things pop up, how quick can you make that change and that switch?
Yeah, and I think that's an expansion of consciousness. If you can accomplish something like that, you're attaining a higher level of evolution as far as like
the way
you're projecting yourself.
Nobody can mess with the way that you want to feel, and that's how I look at it. If I want to feel a certain way, then I just have to make the connection to say, how do I get there? Doesn't matter how I get there, as long as I get there, to me. And that's the way that I found that I can reframe that, and I can feel better quicker.
Love the metaphor of reframing. Love it. One of the tricks I use, and we've talked about it several times, is looking at all of the different possibilities. So this is a valid pathway that I can take with this, and this is a valid reality. If I focus on that, it'll go this direction. There's also other valid possibilities, and just kind of try them on for size. This could go well. This could be one of the best things that happened to me, because if I was still with that person, then I wouldn't have seen this opportunity. And you get to pick which one you want, but you're not fighting the one that's hurting anymore. You're just saying that's a valid pathway. It's not my preference, though. It makes it a lot easier to go. I'm just not choosing that from the options.
Yeah, and I would say it's fine to choose to be, you know, upset. It's fine to choose to be angry, whatever. But I think in the end, you should choose how you want to feel. And when you're done feeling angry, you're done the suffering, you're done with the negative emotions, you know, it's up to you to change how you want to feel. And when you do that yourself, that's an empowering feeling.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, because it shouldn't be reflecting to where you're having negative interactions towards other people. That's when it starts to get a little bit dangerous. Like I mean, because it could mess up something in your life. You know what I mean? Like it's not safe to, you know, I don't know. Like it's interesting though. It's interesting.
Well,
And
one
I
of
mean,
the
like
beautiful gifts that I've seen that comes from having an experience like that is going forward now when you encounter somebody else experiencing those types of emotions, your empathy is a whole different level. And when you speak to them, it's going to hit differently than somebody that hasn't experienced that. You're going to be it allows you to be a great teacher for others because
I didn't think about that.
you understand
that's a really good point.
And a good student to yourself too. Once you start teaching, that's the best form of knowledge of learning is teaching.
Yeah, and the podcast that you've created is fantastic for that exact thing, because as you talk about your experiences, there's going to be other people out there that hear it and go, I'm experiencing that too. And what a gift you're giving for being willing to share it and be so vulnerable and talk it through. It's really a neat thing that you're doing.
And come out on the other side of it and show, you know, you're showing your audience and other people that, you know, you're not alone. You shouldn't feel shame in how you feel, but in the end, you're the one that has to stand up.
That's amazing. That's really good points. I never thought about that.
You can zell us the psych fee. No problem. Cancel your psychiatrist. You're good. Unless they're giving you medicine, and then maybe you just keep that side. Whatever works, man. We're all here. We are one, right? I mean, we're all trying to experience this life the best way that we can. That's one of the things that I think I can try to reframe for people is that, you know, that no matter what kind of personality you had before, you know, you're in charge of your own evolution. And this is my shirt. You can't read it, but it says the prophet of you.
Love it.
I like that. For sure.
You're going to put it on your merch?
Maybe. I don't know. That's a good idea.
You can have another line. Instead of a typical skeptic, it'd be a typical prophet. Or a skeptic prophet.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Chaunine, I appreciate your time. Rob, what else you got for us, man?
I'm all out of ideas for the night. I think I'm like tired. This was a fascinating conversation, though. This was great.
Yeah, I think it was very enlightening. I wanted to keep it under an hour so that we can kind of keep these things coming. And I definitely want to have you back on. Maybe, Rob, when you get another couple problems you can't solve, come back. No, I'm just kidding.
I would love to come back. And, you know, a discussion that I would love to have more is I have also had objects showing up in my experience that I have no explanation for. And I would like to understand a little better what's going on there.
The physical matter.
I have had stuff disappear. I've had stuff disappear up here too. It's insane. I remember, Ken, we were talking about it. I was like, it's real. It's a real phenomena that happens. I don't know if that's like timelines mixing or if that's entities interjecting stuff into your timeline, or if that's your past relatives, or if that's like, you know, there's so many things it could be. But I'm open to it all.
It could be us. It could be us manifesting those physical things too. And that's the exciting part for me is, you know, when I see things appear, I start thinking, what can I do? You know, I don't know if that was me that did that, but you know, if somebody can do that, if that can be done, that I can witness and testify to, then that's possible for us to do this. And that's awesome to me to say that that's a possibility. I love that.
Yeah, I think it is a
Well, I
possibility.
mean,
I think it's a clue to what we actually are capable of.
Yep.
I would love to continue this discussion with the two of you and just kind of chew on it a little bit, because I think the more we share and the more we talk about it, the more the bandwidth expands and the more we ground in that reality to be able to understand it and actually use some of these abilities that are starting to show up.
Yep, absolutely. Let's
I
try
agree.
to let's try to see if we can schedule, within the next week or so, and come back and think about that, the things that have disappeared in our lives and the things that we want to manifest to them, and see if we can, as you said, ground that back in.
I love it. I love it.
All right, we'll be in touch. Chaunine, I have your information, and I think I copied your email on Rob's email, so you guys should have your emails now. If you don't, I can exchange those for you as well. So.
Oh, fantastic. It's been such a joy. And yeah, looking forward to continuing the conversation.
Awesome. Well, you guys enjoy your night. Rob, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, everyone.
Chaunine,
It was nice.
Have a good night.
All right.
Guys, thanks for tuning in to the We Are One podcast. Stay tuned for more conversations.